helpful, patient, encouragement, positive, and humour, which is the reason that the humour bit's the bit that I like the most and the reason that makes my job enjoyable to come to. Some of the things that people have said about you, they're always smiling and willing to do anything for you. They show their goodness and humanity by volunteering. Admire them for giving up their time. Knowing that they have the same condition as me gave me the encouragement to have a positive outlook on life. Brought me out of my shell and made me understand things. Have been perfectly happy would take one home, which I thought was the best comment that we'd had. I'm not sure anyone would want to take me or Pam home, considering we're paid to inflict pain. But so for me, that's really important, and it's really important that you get some of that feedback. And I don't think it's something that we've been particularly good at telling you. And one of the things that maybe in the time that Pam and I have been off, I know that we've been conscious that we haven't had as much interaction with you all to let you know some of this feedback. So I also wanted to tell you, I'm going to put Pam on the spot, she hasn't seen this presentation, so you'll have to bear with her, about what you mean to us as staff and what you bring to us as a service. So I'm going to put her on the spot.
I'm going to start by a really random thing, as usual, and those who know you will know that's know me, will know that's me. It's really hard to explain. It really is. And when new people come in, and we have rotational people coming in, and we have, like last week, we had people coming in from, I think from Birmingham, people from London, people from all over asking us what we do, how we do it, what you lot mean. And to some extent, once you get it, it changes your world. Because what you mean is you mean that I think we get better results. I think you, once we cross the barrier, once I cross the barrier, so I'm just talking about me now, between being this clinical, I will be detached, I will do unto you, because I am the physio. Once I got past that, and although we say we see people, patients as people, I'm not sure how much, particularly physios, are trained to do that. And I don't know how much our clinical staff are really trained to see it. We're trained to be a bit detached. But once you start seeing people, and you start seeing them in the round, and our buddies particularly, that's where, and obviously some of the Falls volunteers, once you start hearing stories, once you start them bugging me about what I haven't done, what I have done, how I could do it better, it's everything. It's changed my complete way of practicing. It's changed my complete life. I think it has formed Hope Street Services, absolutely. Without you, without that initial funding, I think, to get the Falls Collaborative going, that mindset, that way of working, the way of thinking would never have happened. And even though you might come in and you might see it and you might think, oh, this is how everyone should, will run, and this is how everything should be done. It's not done like that everywhere, and that's because they haven't got you, and people find it hard to really connect. And I think you've done that. Certainly, I'd have to say, hard thing, but a good thing is my buddies. Now I'm looking at Mick now because he's been with me a long time, but he bugs me. He bugs me all the time. But I know about him, and I know about his grandkids, and he knows about mine, and it's a community. I think we've created a community. So it's more than a service, it's more than a health service, it's more than a social service. And I think that community of hope enables us to meet our aim. And we're going to talk a lot about meeting our aim, but even the aim was told to me by one of our patients. She said, you don't make us do anything, you can't give us a magic pill. What you do is you guide us to a healthier life. You try and get us to be as good as we can be. And I think that without you doing that and being with us and us all doing it together, we wouldn't get people to where we get them. And we get people amazingly better. And we don't get them better for 8 weeks. We get them better, hopefully, for the rest of their life. We don't throw them away, because they're not just patients. They're not just this thing that can be thrown away. They're people with life, with grandkids, with hopes, aspirations, down days, good days. And as soon as you start doing that, you create a completely different way of working and being around people. Difficult sometimes, but fantastic results. hard to put in a package and sell, but I think we're doing it really, really well. And I think that's what we do together. I hope that's answered some of that.
Get the best dirty jokes from you lot. My joke repertoire has just gone through the roof since I started working with volunteers. No, I'm simplifying things, and I would emphasise what Pam said. I had a lot of problems when we first started with the Falls Collaborative around getting my peers and my colleagues to understand what we were doing. And many health professionals and social care professionals' idea of volunteers is you meet and greet people and make tea. And that's what the 1,000 volunteers do in the hospital. And for me, that's an absolute waste. And you'll see from some of the forms that we've given you, what we try and do is recognise the skills that you have and you bring. And we've had phenomenal ideas and progressions in our service because of the life skills and experiences that you bring to our service that myself, as I'm going to claim I'm still very young, haven't had. And so for me, it's that sort of amalgamation of everyone's enthusiasm, energy, ideas. So that for me is what has made Hope what it is. And I love the fact that we're based at Hope Street and we can use that as one of our main descriptions of our service. I'm going to pick on a few staff. Are there any staff that would like to say something? I have pre-warned some of them. Come on.
I looked them all. You know, I'm with all members of staff as well.
Well, I wouldn't say that, Karen.
Longest serving, as Mick puts it. Okay, so when I first came into the service, it was a totally different way of working, like Pam says, working with patients who are actually working alongside us, and it's a really strange concept for us as clinicians to get to grips with. But you soon told us what to do. The buddies have absolutely, and all the volunteers have helped us really design the service. For me, it was you guys that came to me and said, oh, you know, Mr X and Mr Y, they're still smoking when they come to our groups. They shouldn't be smoking. Well, why can't we help them do that as well? You guys developed our smoking cessation group as well. You tell us what we need to do, if you like, and you help us to develop it. And you add that real life concept, you put that real life slant on things to put people at ease, and that's why we are getting the results we are. As Kylie says, our smoking cessation service, we get more than 80% quit rates from our team, and that is the way we run it differently is with the buddies and the real life volunteers, and that is the only thing different to other services. Nationally, the quit rates for people who try to stop smoking is around 50%. But we get people who sustain that quit as well. We get almost half of those people manage to stop smoking in the long term. People who stop smoking with other smoking cessation services, less than 10% of them are actually still stop smoking at a year, whereas nearly 50% of ours are, because they keep getting that support, and it's that concept, it's that motivation that they've had from those early stages, from people who know what they're talking about, and that's you guys. So for me, it's adding that real life slant, that personalisation, engaging people from the start, the friendliness, the informality that we as clinicians can't and are unable to provide, if you like, because of our professional boundaries. That's why it works so well, and it's where you bring new ideas all the time, completely evolving the service as we go along, and that's got to carry on happening.
Hello, I've got that then. I'm Irene, I'm one of the physios that works with the Falls team, so I look after falls and the dementia patients, and sometimes respiratory. I have been on the respiratory side, which is where my idea came from. When I first came to Hope Street, I've been there about 4 years. And when I saw volunteers working in a clinical setting, I thought, obviously, I don't want to stay here because this is completely wrong. These people aren't trained, what are they doing? And I was very anxious about the whole thing. And I think suffice it to say, I used to be a rotational physio, and I go round doing lots of different treatments in different areas, and I was given the opportunity to stay at Hope Street, and I took it. So, having seen lots of treatments elsewhere, I can sort of safely say, having been through the hospital and around various community activities, I've never come across a service like Hope Street, and I wanted to be part of the team. And in terms of the volunteering, I think the volunteers have trained me in different approaches. I was with a volunteer just a week or so ago who, a respiratory patient, had been talking to me, and as a clinician I got to think in a certain way. So she was telling me one of her problems and about her breathlessness. So I was having to think what's happening with her body, how can we change this, what can we do about it? So I'm thinking from one point of view. She then went to tell the same story to one of the volunteers, but when she got to her punchline, which was one where I said, oh right, okay, and I'm sort of thinking how we can change it, the volunteer, who also had a respiratory condition, burst out laughing. And so I said, oh yes, it's like that sometimes, isn't it? And then she just wandered off, the volunteer wandered off. And for me as a clinician looking on, that was perfect. It so put it into perspective for this lady that, yes, you can get out of breath, but that's okay, there is life still. And with our fallers, sometimes our fallers coming in are really quite anxious, and some of the things we do in falls is we have exercises that actually make you feel very unsteady, and that's by way of treatment. And again, some of our fallers feel quite concerned about some of these exercises, and again that's where our volunteers can come in. They're not in uniform, and sometimes when I approach people you can see them, you know, and just because they're, what am I going to say, what am I going to ask them to do, you know, can they say no? And the volunteers get alongside them, just reassure them and tell their stories about how things have changed for them since they've been exercising. I've got one of my girls here, I've called my falls girls here, and over in this corner I've got one of my girls who I'll often say she needs a mum. And I send her over, and one of my volunteers just approaches some of our anxious patients in that way, because they do sometimes just need that arm around their shoulder and that reassurance that I can't always give in my role. So yeah, I think it's fair to say I wouldn't be the clinician I am today without working with volunteers.